Have you ever heard of someone who changed the world and nobody even noticed? A person who quietly moved pieces behind the scenes while everyone else was busy chasing fame and recognition. And the crazy part is that the impact was massive but invisible to the eyes of the world. And I am about to tell you the story of this unknown person who did things that seemed impossible and faced obstacles that would have stopped most people dead in their tracks. And imagine a life where every effort you make seems to go unnoticed, where people doubt your every move, and yet something inside you refuses to quit, something that pushes you to keep going even when the world does not care. And I want you to stick with me until the end of the story, because you are going to see how one individual can create waves that ripple across millions of lives without ever asking for credit or applause. And what if I told you that the difference between someone who just exists and someone who changes everything quietly lies in small choices and decisions that nobody watches? And this person made those choices every single day, even when the odds were stacked so high that giving up seemed like the only sane option. And yet here we are on the brink of discovering a story so powerful yet so hidden that it challenges everything we think we know about success and influence. And I promise, by the time you finish listening, you'll be thinking about your own life differently. And you might start wondering what small action you can take today that could end up changing the world without anyone ever knowing who made it happen. And right now, before we go deeper, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because you are not going to want to miss stories like this one that are shocking, inspiring, and completely unbelievable. And just imagine walking through life not knowing that right under your nose someone is quietly shaping the future. And the craziest thing is that most people never realize until much later, if at all. And what I am going to show you is that sometimes the biggest impact comes from the smallest invisible hands, the ones that touch lives quietly and yet leave marks that no one can erase. And think about it, how many people have changed history without their names recorded or celebrated? How many people made decisions that changed millions of lives and nobody even knew it was them? And today you're going to hear about one of those rare, invisible heroes, someone who started with nothing, someone who faced ridicule, isolation, and impossible odds, and someone who never gave up even when failure seemed certain. And this is not just a story about courage, it is a story about vision, about persistence, about doing what is right even when nobody is watching. And as I tell you this story, pay attention to the moments where everything could have ended, where one choice could have led to giving up, and yet the journey continued. And I want you to imagine yourself in their shoes, feeling the pressure, the doubt, the loneliness, yet finding that spark to move forward. And what I am going to show you in the next few minutes is how a single person with determination, vision, and patience can make a difference that echoes across time and space, even without recognition. And now you are standing on the edge of that journey, a journey that begins in obscurity and leads to consequences so profound that the world feels the impact without ever knowing the hand that guided it. And this story is not just about inspiration, it is a roadmap to understanding how unseen actions can ripple into monumental change. And as you listen, I want you to hold on to that thought that sometimes doing something small in the right way can have effects bigger than anything you ever imagined. And so get ready, because we are diving into the life of someone whose name you probably have never heard, but whose actions will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about influence, legacy, and the meaning of true impact. And this is where the story begins, where the invisible becomes visible through the ripple of their choices and the quiet persistence that nobody applauded. And now you are about to enter a world where the hero does not wear a cape, where the victories are unseen, and where the real power comes from dedication, patience, and relentless belief in something greater than oneself. And so keep watching, stay focused, because what you are about to hear is not just a story, it is a revelation about what it really means to change the world without anyone ever noticing. So now that you are hooked, let me give you the bigger picture of why this story matters and why you need to pay attention, because the world is full of people chasing fame, looking for likes and recognition, while real change is quietly happening in the shadows. And this person understood that from the very beginning. While others were focused on being seen, they focused on making a difference that nobody would notice at first. And the reason the story is so important is because it shows how actions that seem small, invisible, or unrecognized can actually shape the future in ways you could never imagine. And it all started in a time and place where the odds were completely against them, where resources were scarce, where nobody believed in what they were trying to do. And yet they kept going because they knew that if they persisted long enough, if they stayed patient, if they kept making the right choices, eventually something would happen that would change everything. And what makes this even more fascinating is that nobody around them saw the importance of what they were doing. Nobody applauded, nobody encouraged, and yet the work continued day after day, hour after hour in the background, unnoticed by the world. And you have to understand that this is not just luck or coincidence. This is strategy, determination, and a deep understanding that impact does not always come with recognition. And as I talk about this, you might be wondering what could possibly be so important that it changes millions. of lives quietly without anyone knowing, and the answer lies in the way they approached problems, the way they looked at challenges, and the way they never gave up even when everything seemed hopeless. And the conflict of the story is simple yet profound on the surface. It looks like an ordinary struggle against obstacles, against people who doubted, against circumstances that seemed impossible, but underneath it is about understanding the hidden levers of influence, the subtle ways that one person can affect the lives of thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions without ever stepping into the spotlight. And this context is crucial because it sets the stage for what is coming next. It allows you to see why the choices they made mattered, why the persistence mattered, and why what they were doing in obscurity was actually more important than anything anyone else was noticing. And you have to imagine the pressure, the isolation, the moments of doubt when the world seemed indifferent, and yet the mission had to continue because giving up was not an option. And what I want you to do as I guide you through this story is to start noticing the patterns, the decisions, the small acts that build up over time into something monumental. And the beauty of it is that it teaches you a lesson you can apply to your own life, even if you are not famous, even if nobody notices, even if nobody applauds your efforts. The principle is the same, that small, persistent, invisible actions can create enormous change. And now picture the early days when they were just starting out. The resources were minimal, the support was almost non-existent, and every step forward felt like a mountain to climb. And yet, something inside them refused to quit, something that kept the fire alive, that said, keep going even when nobody sees, keep going, because what you are doing matters in ways that are not obvious yet. And this is what makes the context so compelling, because we can all relate to moments where our efforts feel invisible, where our work seems unappreciated, where the odds feel impossible. And yet this story shows that impact is not measured by recognition, it is measured by the change you create, even if the world never acknowledges it. And as I continue, you will see how this context of struggle, disbelief, and invisibility sets up the central problem and the conflict that drives the rest of the story. Because every choice, every action, every moment of persistence is connected to the ultimate transformation that is coming. And it is this connection that makes the narrative so gripping, that makes you want to keep watching, that makes you wonder what happens next. And imagine being in their shoes, seeing doors closed, feeling the weight of skepticism, and yet believing so strongly in the value of what you are doing that nothing can stop you. That is the essence of this contextualization. It bridges the gap between the ordinary world we live in and the extraordinary, unseen world where change is quietly taking place. And now you are fully equipped to understand the stakes, to feel the tension, and to start empathizing with someone whose impact will soon ripple far beyond what anyone could have imagined. And as we move forward into the next chapter, the problem, the conflict, the central struggle will become clear, and you will start to see exactly why the choices made in obscurity were not just courageous, but revolutionary. And this context also primes you for the emotional connection you need to really care about what is about to unfold, because without understanding the isolation, the pressure, the disbelief, you would not fully grasp the magnitude of the eventual transformation. And so, as you sit here listening, think about the quiet struggles, the invisible work that surrounds you every day, and how it might be shaping the world in ways that are not immediately obvious, because that is the world this person lived in, and the stage is now set, the background is painted, the tension is rising, and the journey is about to enter the heart of the conflict, the point where challenges intensify and the true struggle begins. And as we move into the next chapter, you will start to see not just what happened, but why it mattered, and how it connected to the incredible outcomes that followed. So now that you understand the context, let me take you deeper into the heart of the struggle, the problem that defined the early years and shaped every decision, every risk, and every action this person took. The conflict was not just external, it was internal, it was social, it was financial, and it was existential. Every day was a battle against doubt, against scarcity, against people who dismissed their ideas as irrelevant or impossible. And the pressure was immense, because at every turn doors closed, opportunities vanished, support disappeared, and the world seemed indifferent to their efforts. Yet the stakes were enormous, because what they were trying to achieve was not just for themselves, it had the potential to touch lives in ways that were profound and far-reaching. And the challenge was amplified by the fact that nobody was watching, nobody was cheering, nobody was validating their work. And in that invisibility lay both freedom and risk. Freedom to innovate without scrutiny, but risk because failure meant complete obscurity. And yet, despite all of this, the internal drive refused to die. The vision remained clear, the purpose remained urgent, and the determination was relentless. And you have to imagine the mental and emotional strain, the constant tension of knowing that every move mattered, but nobody understood or cared, at least not yet. And the social challenges were just as daunting. Friends and family doubted, peers ridiculed, and skeptics mocked the effort, labeling it a waste of time or Naive, yet each negative response, each closed door, each moment of isolation only strengthened the resolve to prove that impact did not require applause, and as the pressure mounted, the problems themselves became more complex, more interconnected, more difficult to solve. The early failures were lessons in disguise, small setbacks that if not learned from could have ended the journey permanently, and yet this person approached every obstacle strategically, thoughtfully, and with patience, understanding that success was not instantaneous, recognition was irrelevant, and the real measure was the change being created quietly behind the scenes. And now imagine a scenario where every step forward feels like 2 steps back, where every action is scrutinized by people who don't believe, and yet the stakes are life-altering. Literally thousands, maybe millions of people could benefit if the challenges were overcome, and this was the core of the conflict. The reason the story grips you, it is a battle that is comprehensible yet extraordinary. Ordinary people face doubt and obstacles every day, but few face the level of invisibility combined with potential impact that this person did, and the tension builds, because as you watch the story unfold, you begin to feel the weight of each decision, the enormity of each risk, the emotional toll of perseverance in the face of systemic skepticism and relentless adversity. And the conflict is not only external, it is a test of character, a crucible of integrity and endurance, where giving up is easy but commitment is costly. And the moment you realize that the conflict is escalating, you start to understand why the eventual breakthrough will feel like more than just success. It will feel like a triumph over forces that seem insurmountable, and the stakes are made even more tangible when you see the consequences of failure. Failure meant that the world would never benefit from the innovation, the insight, the solution that this person was creating, and yet each failure, each rejection, each obstacle only added fuel to the fire, because the vision was bigger than recognition, bigger than applause, bigger than anything else. And you start to notice the subtle ways they navigated this conflict, finding allies where few existed, creating small victories to maintain momentum, and using setbacks as stepping stones rather than stopping points. And as you follow this narrative, you begin to sense the delicate balance between persistence and despair, the line between giving up and pushing forward, and the moments where the tension is almost unbearable, yet the drive refuses to be extinguished. And this is where the story becomes mesmerizing, because every choice matters, every failure teaches something, every small win accumulates, and the problem that seemed impossible slowly starts to be dismantled piece by piece through sheer resilience, creativity, and unwavering belief. And now, as the chapter comes to a close, you begin to feel the anticipation building, because the obstacles are about to escalate even further. The tension is about to peak. The challenges are going to test every limit, and you are sitting on the edge of your seat wondering if they will make it, and yet you already sense that something extraordinary is about to happen, something that will redefine what you thought possible, something that will turn the narrative from struggle into transformation. And as we move into the next chapter, the escalation of tension, the piling up of obstacles, and the deepening of conflict will show you exactly how near impossible the journey was, and why the eventual point of breakthrough is not just satisfying, it is emotionally explosive. It is the turning point that makes all the struggle worth it. And so keep your focus, because what seems insurmountable now is about to become the stage for the most critical decisions, the most intense challenges, and the moments that define a legacy that the world will feel without ever knowing the face behind it. As we move deeper into this story, the challenges become more intense, the obstacles more complex, and the stakes higher than ever before. Every decision now carries more weight, every action is scrutinized even if no one is watching, and the tension builds, because each small failure threatens to unravel everything that has been painstakingly built up to this point. Imagine the sense of pressure, the constant mental strain, the feeling that one wrong move could end the journey entirely. Yet despite this relentless adversity, the person continues to push forward with unwavering determination, and the early victories, which were small and almost invisible, serve as the only fuel to keep going even when hope feels distant. And the escalation of tension is not just about external obstacles, it is also about the internal battles, the doubts, the fears, the moments of exhaustion when giving up would be easier than continuing. And yet there is a quiet strength, a resolve that refuses to yield, a belief that the path ahead, even if invisible, will eventually lead to monumental change. And as you follow this story, you begin to feel the suspense, the anticipation, the emotional roller coaster of near misses and small victories that keep the audience engaged, because every moment is unpredictable, every outcome uncertain, and the narrative masterfully keeps you on edge, because as one obstacle is overcome, another arises, more complicated, more challenging, and more emotionally taxing. And the escalation continues as the social pressures intensify, critics become louder, friends become more skeptical, support dwindles, and yet each moment of doubt and opposition only reinforces the inner fire, the drive to continue, to persist, to make choices that align with a vision that nobody else can see or understand. And now picture the countless scenarios each day where failure seemed imminent, where a single misstep could undo months or years of hard work, and yet this person adapts, overcomes, improvises, and pushes forward. learning from each setback, using each challenge as a stepping stone rather than a stopping point, and the tension is amplified by the fact that success remains invisible. The world remains unaware of the effort of genius, the work of innovation, the acts of courage that are quietly shaping the future, and this invisibility adds another layer of suspense because you never know if the next obstacle will be the one that finally breaks them, or if the perseverance will finally start to yield results that change everything. And what makes this chapter captivating is the rhythm of tension and release, small victories followed by new crises, moments where the audience feels a breath of hope followed by the anxiety of impending challenges, and the subtle cliffhangers that are strategically placed to keep you hooked to the story, unable to look away because the narrative momentum is relentless, and you begin to understand the enormous psychological resilience required to continue in the face of repeated setbacks. And the story illustrates how mastery of patience, persistence, and strategy can gradually transform the impossible into achievable outcomes even when no one notices the work being done. And imagine the sleepless nights, the endless planning, the moments of doubt and despair, the emotional highs and lows, the sense of isolation. And yet, through it all, the vision remains clear, the goal remains urgent, and the commitment unwavering. And now, as obstacles escalate, the narrative introduces new elements, unexpected crises that test adaptability and innovation, forcing the protagonist to make decisions that carry enormous consequences, each choice a risk, each action a potential turning point. And as you experience this tension, you feel yourself drawn into the story, living vicariously through the highs and lows, imagining the weight of responsibility and the courage it takes to continue when every sign points to failure. And yet, the tension is skillfully balanced with glimpses of progress, moments that hint at what is possible, and these moments serve as hooks to keep the audience engaged, wondering what will happen next. Will the efforts finally pay off, or will the relentless challenges prove insurmountable? And as the chapter unfolds, you start to see the accumulation of small actions, small decisions, small persistent efforts that layer upon one another, creating a foundation for the monumental breakthrough that is coming. And the suspense is heightened by the uncertainty, the unpredictability, the fact that success is not guaranteed, and the reader or viewer is kept on edge because the journey is long, grueling, and fraught with setbacks. And yet the protagonist demonstrates adaptability, creativity, intelligence, and emotional strength that gradually turn the tide, each new challenge met with ingenuity, each new obstacle an opportunity to learn, each failure a lesson in disguise. And as you approach the end of this chapter, the tension reaches a fever pitch, the stakes are higher than ever, the emotional investment of the audience is intense, and you are left anticipating the next chapter, the point of turnaround, the decisive moment that will shift the trajectory from struggle to transformation. And now, as we prepare to enter the next chapter, the stage is perfectly set, the obstacles are at their peak, the challenges have tested every limit, the perseverance has been relentless, and you are ready to witness the moment where all the tension, the struggle, the invisible work begins to pay off in ways that will start to change the course of events. And this escalation of tension chapter serves not just to entertain, but to immerse you completely in the journey, to make you feel the weight of adversity, the depth of commitment, and the immense impact of persistence, even when it seems invisible. And as the story moves forward, you will experience the catharsis of the turning point, the moment that validates every struggle and demonstrates the quiet power of relentless unseen effort. And now the moment arrives, the turning point, the moment where all the relentless struggle, all the invisible effort, all the tension and obstacles converge into a single pivotal instant, a decision, an action, a breakthrough that changes the course of everything. And the turning point is not flashy, it is not dramatic in the traditional sense, it is subtle, it is almost invisible to the casual observer, yet its impact is monumental, because it marks the shift from persistent struggle to tangible effect. And you can almost feel the weight of the years of effort, the nights of doubt, the moments of isolation, culminating in this one moment where vision and action intersect. And the decision made at this point is both courageous and precise. It requires insight that comes only from experience, resilience that comes only from enduring adversity, and the faith that comes only from believing in a cause greater than oneself. And the turning point also carries an element of surprise, a twist that nobody expected. Perhaps even the protagonist did not fully anticipate the consequences that are about to unfold, yet there is a sense of inevitability because the groundwork has been laid meticulously over time. Every small decision, every minor victory, every lesson learned all converge to make this breakthrough possible. And the subtlety of the turning point is what makes it so powerful, because it demonstrates that impact does not require spectacle, recognition, or applause. It requires persistence, focus, and the courage to act when the moment is right. And now imagine the tension before the turning point. The audience has been fully immersed in the struggle. The stakes have been built to their maximum. The obstacles have tested every limit. And just when the situation seems almost impossible, the breakthrough appears almost effortless, yet is deeply earned. And the turning point also transforms perspective, not just externally, but internally. For the protagonist, they realize that the struggle was shaping them preparing them, equipping them to handle the responsibilities and consequences of the change they are about to create. And for the audience, it shifts everything we thought we knew about influence, about success, about the quiet power of unseen effort. Suddenly, what seemed invisible now becomes the foundation for massive unseen impact, and the anticipation of this turning point keeps the audience on edge, because the payoff is not instant. The ripple of effects is only beginning to unfold, and the subtle brilliance of the turning point is that it often goes unnoticed by the world at large, yet it changes everything fundamentally, irreversibly, and the decisions made here are informed by years of experience, by observation, by trial and error, and by a vision that never wavered despite repeated setbacks. And this is the moment where strategy meets opportunity, where patience meets action, and where persistence finally produces results. And the emotional weight is immense because the protagonist has endured so much, yet continues to act with humility and focus on the outcome rather than the recognition. And you start to notice the patterns, the careful planning, the incremental steps, the cumulative effect of persistent action that all finally intersect in this pivotal moment. And the turning point also marks a shift in narrative energy, from struggle to transformation, from tension to momentum, from uncertainty to subtle inevitability. And it teaches a profound lesson about the power of unseen work, the significance of quiet courage, and the impact of sustained effort even when the world seems indifferent. And now, as you follow the ripple effects of this turning point, you see how small actions combine to create large consequences, how invisible effort begins to manifest in ways that are measurable, tangible, and meaningful. And the beauty of this turning point is that it validates every risk, every failure, every moment of doubt that came before it, because suddenly the trajectory is changed. The seeds that were planted in obscurity are starting to bloom, and the emotional resonance is powerful because the protagonist experiences a sense of alignment, fulfillment, and quiet triumph, not just for themselves, but for the world that is about to feel the impact without ever knowing who made it happen. And as the narrative continues, the turning point becomes the hinge, the fulcrum upon which the rest of the story pivots. The narrative energy shifts from tension to anticipation of outcome, from struggle to realization, from effort to consequence. And for the audience, this turning point delivers both satisfaction and suspense. It confirms that persistence pays off, yet leaves room for wonder at the magnitude and subtlety of the unfolding impact. And as we move toward the next chapter, the climax, all the accumulated tension, all the obstacles, all the persistence will converge into the moment of greatest impact, the apex of emotional intensity, and the realization of the true power of unseen effort. And so the turning point stands as both a moment of transformation and a bridge to the climax, a moment where the struggle starts to bear fruit, where the invisible finally exerts visible influence, where the narrative momentum accelerates, and you are fully aware that what comes next will be the most emotionally resonant part of the journey, the apex of the story, the point where all elements come together in a profound and satisfying way. And now you are ready to experience that apex too. Witness the full impact of a journey that started in obscurity and has arrived at a moment of silent, monumental change. And now we reach the climax, the apex, the moment where all the tension, the obstacles, the struggle, and the persistence converge into a single powerful moment, where the impact of unseen effort finally becomes undeniable. And the climax is not just an external revelation, it is also an internal awakening. It is the culmination of years of invisible work, of quiet persistence, of decisions made in obscurity. And the emotional intensity is at its peak because every challenge, every setback, every doubt has led to this moment, and you can almost feel the weight of every choice, the pressure of every decision, the emotional strain of every sleepless night, and the relentless perseverance that has carried the protagonist through seemingly impossible odds. And the beauty of the climax is that it simultaneously validates all of the struggle and reveals the profound influence that one person can have without anyone noticing. The world may remain unaware of who made it happen, but the ripple effects are massive and transformative. And as you witness the unfolding of the climax, you start to see the outcomes of all the subtle actions, the quiet decisions, the small persistent efforts that have been building over time. And suddenly the impact becomes visible, tangible, measurable in ways that touch countless lives. And the emotional resonance is immense because it is not just about success, it is about triumph over adversity, about the power of persistence, about the quiet dignity of someone who never sought recognition but changed everything anyway. And you begin to feel the suspense, the anticipation, the sheer intensity of the moment as the results cascade one after another, showing the magnitude of what has been achieved. And the narrative masterfully keeps you on edge because even as outcomes begin to manifest, there is still uncertainty about the full scale of impact, the depth of change, the extent to which the world will feel the consequences. And yet the protagonist remains calm, focused Strategic, patient, never letting the lack of recognition distract from the work that matters, and the climax also demonstrates the subtlety of true influence that often goes unnoticed in the moment, because impact is not always immediate. It can be delayed, invisible, intangible, yet profound. And as the ripple of effects continues to spread, you can see how one person operating quietly behind the scenes can alter trajectories, transform communities, inspire generations, and shift paradigms without ever stepping into the spotlight or seeking validation. And the emotional high of the climax is amplified by the contrast with all that came before: the relentless struggle, the isolation, the doubt, the seemingly insurmountable obstacles. And now here is the payoff, the manifestation of all the unseen effort, the tangible results of persistent dedication, the transformation that validates every risk, every setback, every moment of despair. And yet the climax is not only about visible outcomes, it is also about internal transformation, the growth, the resilience, the wisdom, the courage cultivated over years of adversity. And the audience experiences a powerful sense of catharsis, because we have been along for the journey. We have felt the tension, the suspense, the uncertainty, and now we witness the release, the resolution, the proof that persistence and vision in obscurity can produce monumental change. And the narrative also emphasizes the quiet dignity of achievement, the satisfaction that comes not from applause or recognition, but from knowing that what has been done matters in profound ways, even if nobody notices. And as the climax unfolds, the scale of influence becomes clear. The small actions multiply, the efforts compound, and the unseen work exerts a force that alters the world in ways that are emotionally satisfying and intellectually awe-inspiring. And the tension that has been building from the first chapter now reaches its absolute peak. Every emotional beat, every narrative twist, every moment of suspense converges to deliver a powerful experience for the audience who has been fully immersed in the journey. And the climax also teaches a profound lesson about human potential, the power of persistence, the significance of invisible work, the impact of quiet courage, and the way in which meaningful change can occur without fanfare or recognition. And you begin to feel the connection, the empathy, the inspiration from witnessing the transformation, not just in outcomes, but in character and strategy and patience and vision. And the climax continues to deliver twists, subtle surprises, and confirmation of progress that keeps the audience fully engaged, because the story has been meticulously crafted to reward attention and investment. And as the apex reaches its conclusion, the full magnitude of the protagonist's influence becomes apparent. The world feels the impact. The change is undeniable, even if the hand behind it remains hidden. And the narrative simultaneously provides closure for the tension, the suspense, and the struggle, while leaving space for reflection on the subtle power of unseen effort. And now, as the climax transitions toward the final chapter, you are prepared for the unexpected ending, the final revelation, the twist that reinforces the emotional resonance and leaves the audience with awe, inspiration, and a deep appreciation for the quiet heroes whose work silently shapes the world. And so the climax stands as the pinnacle, the moment of greatest emotional intensity, the apex of tension, the revelation of impact, and the validation of persistence, the triumph of vision in obscurity, the demonstration of the profound effect one person can have without anyone ever noticing. And now we arrive at the surprising ending, the moment where expectations are subtly subverted, where the narrative delivers a twist that feels both shocking and inevitable. And the story completes its arc not by revealing fame, recognition, or traditional accolades, but by demonstrating the profound legacy that one person can leave without anyone ever knowing their name. And the ending is remarkable because it challenges everything we thought we knew about success, impact, and visibility. It shows that the greatest changes are often the quietest, the most unnoticed, yet the most far-reaching. And you can almost feel the irony that someone who remained invisible throughout the journey has shaped outcomes on a scale unimaginable to those around them. And the subtle misdirection of the ending enhances its emotional power, because the audience is led to expect conventional recognition, yet what is delivered is deeper, more resonant, more aligned with the true theme of the story, which is the power of unseen influence. And now imagine the ripple of effects cascading outward, each decision, each action multiplying in ways that touch lives far beyond the protagonist's awareness. And the beauty of this ending lies in its realism, its emotional truth, its ability to teach a lesson without needing spectacle, without needing applause, without needing validation from the world at large. And the audience experiences a powerful mix of awe, inspiration, and reflection, because we realize that the impact of our actions does not always correlate with recognition, that doing the right thing persistently, quietly, consistently can produce monumental outcomes even if nobody notices. And the surprising ending also reinforces the emotional resonance of the story, because after all the tension, the struggle, the obstacles, the turning point, and the climax, the audience is now rewarded not with fame, but with understanding, insight, and appreciation for the quiet heroes whose work silently shapes the world. And the Narrative concludes by connecting all threads: the initial hook, the context, the conflict, the escalation, the turning point, the climax, all leading to a final revelation that leaves you thinking long after the story ends. And the ending also serves as a bridge to reflection, because we begin to consider our own potential to make a difference without recognition, the ways in which small persistent actions can ripple into massive unseen change, and it reinforces the underlying message that impact is measured not by applause, by awards, or by acknowledgement, but by the tangible difference made in the lives of others. And as the story winds down, the call to action is naturally integrated, encouraging the audience to like, subscribe, and continue their journey of discovery by exploring the next video, linking the lesson of the story to their own life. And the emotional resonance is further amplified by subtle hints that the journey of influence continues even after the story ends, that the work of Quiet Heroes goes on shaping the world in ways we may never see, and the final twist leaves the audience with both closure and wonder, a satisfying emotional resolution that surprises yet makes perfect sense within the narrative. And the protagonist remains a symbol of quiet perseverance, of unseen influence, of the power of relentless dedication to a cause greater than oneself. And as the story concludes, the narrative reinforces the lessons of patience, resilience, creativity, strategic persistence, and quiet courage, and the audience is left with a powerful reflection on how they too can create meaningful change in their own lives without seeking validation or recognition. And finally, the ending provides a seamless transition to action, reminding the audience to engage with the content, to subscribe to the channel, to like the video, and to watch the next story waiting on screen, while leaving them inspired, motivated, and emotionally fulfilled. And the surprising ending also elegantly ties back to the opening hook, reminding the audience of the invisible hero who changed the world without anyone noticing, closing the loop on the narrative arc and leaving a lasting impression that combines inspiration, education, and emotional engagement. The story concludes fully resolved, yet leaves room for contemplation about the impact of unseen effort, the significance of quiet perseverance, and the profound potential of every individual to make a difference in ways that may never be acknowledged. And so, as we end this journey, remember that true influence often happens in silence, that the most powerful actions can be invisible, and that your own choices, persistent efforts, and unseen actions can ripple outward, creating a legacy that nobody may ever see, but that can change the world in ways far beyond imagination. And now, as you reflect, take a moment to like, subscribe, and click to watch the next video on the screen, continuing your journey of discovering incredible stories of people whose quiet impact shapes our world. And thank you for joining me on this journey, for witnessing the unseen, for feeling the tension, for celebrating the triumph, and for realizing the true meaning of influence and change.